The Kremlin is terrified. Ukraine has begun the hunt. Airstrikes on key Russians. The Ukrainian armed forces have taken out a top general and not just him. They bombed factories and turned up the heat on the front lines. The losses are shocking. The elite of the Russian army is buried, and their missiles are turned to dust. A Ukrainian-style hunt. Russians are terrified. Watch right now.
They tried to stay unnoticed, working far from the front lines in apartments, basements, and disguised locations. But so far, not a single Russian occupier has managed to hide from the Ukrainian armed forces for long. The defense forces have launched a real hunt for Russian drone operators in the Zaporizhia direction. They systematically, precisely, and quietly pushed the enemy out one by one. The operation was named Dronocide. Its results are among the most significant in recent months. According to the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Ukrainian armed forces soldiers discovered 90 locations where Russian operators of strike and reconnaissance drones lived and worked. 42 targets were destroyed or damaged. So, if we talk about the actual number of operators eliminated, we can say that it's over 100 personnel, at the very least. And as practice shows, in one temporary UAV operator location, there can be anywhere from 4 to 10 operators. 8 units took part in the operation. They all worked in a coordinated manner, with precise coordination using both intelligence data and their own drones. For a UAV operator, preparing for this requires both time and, accordingly, financial investment. An operation of this kind can be considered unique. In other words, this is about reducing the occupying army's ability to carry out strikes using FPV drones, both those operating on fiber optics and, accordingly, regular FPV drones, as well as minimizing the use of reconnaissance drones. That is, the ability to strike at the logistics of the Ukrainian defense forces, to destroy personnel, to destroy heavy armored vehicles, to affect the rotation of personnel, to evacuate the wounded, and to deliver ammunition has now been significantly reduced for the occupying army. And the gifts for the Russian army don't end there. Mikhail Gudkov, a major general who led the 155th Marine Brigade currently attempting to advance on Sumy, has joined the list of the dead. According to Z channels, Gudkov was eliminated during a strike on the command post in the settlement of Korenevo in the Kursk region. Along with him, at least 10 more officers, most of whom were senior command staff, have also embarked on the path of purification.
It's much worse. There were 4 strikes on the forward command post of one of the brigades.
But that's not all. An important facility of the enemy's military-industrial complex has been destroyed. The UAV forces of the Ukrainian armed forces, in coordination with other defense forces, carried out a strike on the largest enterprise Energia in the city of Yelets-Lipetsk region. The plant is engaged in the serial production of batteries and accumulators for Russian military munitions. In particular, it manufactures planning and correction modulesa, Russian development that turns conventional aerial bombs into glide bombs with increased accuracy and range. They also produce batteries for Iskander-M operational tactical missiles, Kh-35U naval cruise missiles, and power modules for specialized systems.
Explosions have been reported on the plant's premises and production has been halted. Details on the results of the strike are being clarified. The defense forces continue to take measures to weaken the military and economic potential of the Russian occupiers and to force the Russian Federation to end its armed aggression against Ukraine. This is only the beginning. Glory to Ukraine. Reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
As for the front, the enemy continues to press in all directions. Over the past day, there were 185 combat engagements. Battles were recorded in 12 directions. This was reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The occupiers are not abandoning their plans to expand their presence in Ukraine, primarily at the expense of regions not included in the Russian dictator's decree as part of the Russian Federation. Accordingly, we are talking about the Sumy and Kharkiv regions, as well as the possibility of a breakthrough toward the Dnipropetrovsk region.
There are 1,200 kilometers of active combat linear. Isn't a single quiet section of the front. The enemy is trying to apply pressure wherever they can, attempting to find weak spots in our defense. But to talk about any significant changes on the battlefield, 15 square kilometers out of 1,200 kilometers of active combat line, that's a minor result over the course of a day, taking into account that the enemy, I repeat once again, is losing not only a huge number of personnel, but also equipment, weapons, and other gear, all of which, frankly, require a considerable amount of time to produce and deliver directly to the battlefield.
We are not only successfully holding back the enemy, but also striking Russian concentrations with precision and irreversibly both their manpower and their equipment. The situation on the front line remains difficult. The armed forces of Ukraine are doing everything possible to bring the disgraceful defeat of the Russian army closer as soon as possible. And now the question is not if it will happen, but when. Explosive. NATO is on high alert. American atomic bombs are already in Britain. The Kremlin is on the edge. Putin is in a panic. This will be a nuclear strike on Russia. Why did the Americans urgently bring such powerful weapons?
For the first time in 17 years, Washington has brought weapons of mass destruction to Britain. The US has delivered the most advanced version of bombs, which are the main nuclear weapons of America's strategic forces, to its largest European airbase. However, neither the American nor the British authorities have commented in any way on the alleged deployment of these weapons.
The first information about the possible return of nuclear weapons to the territory of the United Kingdom dates back to 2022. At that time, Western media reported that the United States was carrying out reconstruction of this facility, which had been effectively mothballed in 2008. And accordingly, the actions of the United States should be seen as a gradual return to the nuclear deterrence strategy, which was one of the defining features of the NATO bloc. This also applies to the foreign policy course of the United Kingdom.
As reported by British publications, last week B-61-12 thermonuclear bombs were delivered to a newly built secure storage facility at the Lakenheath Air Base in eastern England. Thus, the United Kingdom has become the sixth country in Europe to host US nuclear weapons.
In March, Polish President Andrzej Duda called on the United States to deploy nuclear capabilities on Polish territory as a possible preventive measure to deter an armed invasion by the Russian Federation from the territory of the Republic of Belarus. In addition, on the 5th of March, French President Emmanuel Macron stated that his country is ready to deploy its nuclear capabilities on the territory of a number of European countries.
The B-61-12G gravity bombs have a yield of up to 50 kilotons, which is more than 3 times the power of the atomic weapon dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. Simply put, it's 4 bombs in one.
This weapon is considered one of the most versatile in the United States nuclear arsenal. Its development began back in the 1960s, and accordingly, there have been 12 modifications over that time. It should be noted that the B-61-12H has 4 possible yield settings, which is quite remarkable, ranging from 0.3 to 50 kilotons, and accordingly, the development of the latest modification, the B-61-12, began in 2008.
American nuclear weapons were already stationed at the UK's Lakenheath base during the Cold War, but they were completely removed from there in 2008 as part of arms reduction efforts in Europe. The likely return of nuclear weapons is part of a program to develop and modernize nuclear facilities in response to heightened tensions with the Kremlin following Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Back in March 2025, Trump called on the Russian Federation and China to pursue nuclear disarmament. However, he did not receive any corresponding political signal, either from the Russian Federation or accordingly from China. And against the backdrop of recent statements by the political leadership of the Russian Federation about the possibility of a nuclear strike on the territory of the United Kingdom, the return of the nuclear arsenal to this country serves as a warning to the Russian Federation and makes it clear that the United States is prepared to respond appropriately to nuclear threats from the Russian Federation.
Russia had previously stated that the deployment of American weapons in the United Kingdom would be regarded by Moscow as an escalation and would be met with compensatory countermeasures.
At present, 5 nuclear facilities are being modernized on the territory of the Russian Federation itself, And this indicates that the Russian Federation is sending a political signal to the United States that in effect it is denouncing the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. There are 11 nuclear facilities located on the territory of the Russian Federation. But problems with the Russian budget, namely the lack of funds, currently allow for the reconstruction of only 5 facilities. And according to the Russian side's own assessment, this will once again turn into a long-term construction project. And yet another set of corruption monuments to the Russian Ministry of Defense.
On the 24th of June, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom announced plans to purchase F-35A fighter jets from the United States, which are capable of carrying B-61 to 12 nuclear bombs. This purchase represents the largest strengthening of the United Kingdom's nuclear capability in a generation.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
The Kremlin is in a panic. Britain is sending missiles to Ukraine in batches. The new alliance is putting pressure on Russia. Putin is trapped. Kyiv, London, and Ankara. The anti-Putin alliance in action. A strike that will decide everything. Ukraine is preparing a deadly surprise for Putin.
More aid and weapons. The United Kingdom and Ukraine have signed a historic agreement on air defense missiles. London will produce missiles for air defense systems for 19 years. The project is worth £2.5 billion.
This is a long-term military technical assistance arrangement between the United Kingdom and Ukraine. And this is evidence that the United Kingdom is sending a clear political signal to the Russian Federation that it will support Ukraine in maintaining its territorial integrity and sovereignty within its internationally recognized borders, not only in the coming years, but also accordingly in the long-term historical perspective.
We are talking about the delivery of more than 5,070mm rockets. They have a range of up to 3,000 meters. They can be used with large-caliber machine guns. Some of the rockets are equipped with laser guidance. They are fully compatible with the Vampire anti-aircraft systems which the armed forces use to intercept the occupiers' drones.
This type of rocket has already been successfully tested by the Ukrainian air defense system, and there is positive experience in neutralizing aerodynamic weapons of the occupying country's army. We are talking about attack drones. I should note that back in 2024, Minister Su SS Metanin signed agreements in Belgium for the production of this type of missile.
The agreement was signed on the sidelines of the conference on Ukraine's reconstruction, which took place in Rome. The statement noted that such cooperation will contribute to the growth of the British economy and the creation of new jobs, as well as enable Ukraine to continue its fight against Russian aggression.
For the United Kingdom, this is an opportunity to modernize its own defense industry, create new jobs, and access, accordingly, foreign markets during the implementation of military technical cooperation programs. But most importantly, this program will once again be implemented at the expense of frozen Russian assets. %. In other words, the point is that the United Kingdom is using Russian money in the war against the Russian Federation itself.
The United Kingdom also confirms the provision of bilateral assistance to Ukraine in the amount of up to £283 million over the next year. In June, London announced a record aid package for drone deliveries worth £350 million. This amount will allow Kyiv to receive 100,000 drones by the end of 2025.
The United Kingdom is a pioneer when it comes to supplying Ukraine with various types of weaponry. Let me remind you, it was the United Kingdom that was the first to provide strike weapons, high-precision strike weapons. We're talking about Storm Shadow missiles with a target range of around 300 kilometers. Only after this historic decision by the UK government did the American side provide ATACMS. Accordingly, the United Kingdom was the first country to supply Ukraine with the latest models of armored vehicles. We're talking about Challenger 2 tanks, which are among the best in their class.
In addition, last month, the British government announced that the UK would strengthen Ukraine's air defense with hundreds of missiles using funds obtained from confiscated Russian assets.
The United Kingdom views Ukraine as a key military and political partner. And let's call things by their proper names. At this point, the United Kingdom is effectively creating a new military political bloc. This includes, accordingly, London, Kyiv, and Ankara, with Kyiv assigned a key role in reducing the military presence of the Russian Federation in the Black Sea region.
Since the beginning of the full-scale war, the United Kingdom has firmly supported Ukraine and has provided military, financial, as well as diplomatic assistance, in particular helping to strengthen Ukraine's defense capabilities and advocating for holding the aggressor accountable at the international level.